Welcome to the BAASS Connect 2021 Sage X3 Manufacturing Overview session. I am Hitesh Jani, Solution Architect for Sage X3 at Sage, and in this session, we will go through a high-level overview of the manufacturing functionality in Sage X3. Some of the topics we will cover include categorized items, inventory and product site attributes, BOMs, routings, detailed costing, requirements planning, production management, WIP cost analysis, and traceability. In this session, we will not provide a dashboard for production management from SEI. Instead, we will defer the dashboarding to the next session that is going to take place focused on SEI. Let's take a look at the Sage X3 product. Before we look at an item, I would like to take you through two concepts. So far, you have seen me work with warehouses that are very simplistic. Stock unit, stock location 1, stock location 2, QC location 1, and so on. Sage X3 can provide much more functionality than what you have seen me deliver. So if you wish, when you create a location, that location can be a receiving dock or a shipping dock. It can be a location dedicated for a specific item. It can be a location dedicated for customer loans or subcontracting transfer of goods. Or you can create your warehouse location in AABBCCDD format where you have an aisle, a rack, a shelf, and a bin. This is in addition to being able to create tank storage and floors. If you are a distribution company, especially with a cash and carry outlet, you need to replenish your floor very fast from your storage location. Or if you are a manufacturing facility in high volume items, you need to keep your bins replenished automatically very fast. Sage X3 can do that. If you wish to eliminate errors and implement barcoding for your warehouse management activities, Sage X3's Automated Data Collection Module or ADC can do that. And if you want to break your warehouse in zones, so for example, if you have certain items in your warehouse that require professionally trained, certified, and bonded employees, the zone management piece or breaking your warehouse into multiple zones, Sage X3 can do that. In addition, if you wish to implement peak sequencing, directed put away, or directed picking, X3 can do that as well. For our demonstration though, we are going to continue to use the simple warehousing approach that we have been using so far. Another concept revolves around production receipt. In Sage X3, you can backflush your materials from floor location, and that is simply creating a setting within the item master, or you can pick the material and bring it to the work center as you go through the production process. However you release your materials, however you enter your time, and however you receive your finished goods, you have choices. You can either enter your time, material, and production using the classic Sage X3 screens that we have shown, or you can do that using barcodes, or if you are using shop floor tracking so that you manage start and stop functions, setup and runtime functions, you manage your employee activities such as lunch break or coffee break, you can do that too. And there is a visual process map to make that happen. For our purposes, we are going to use a simple screen within Sage X3 for our production receipt. With that, let's take a look at the item master. We are going to use an item, FIN301. It is managed in stock. It has detailed traceability. The traceability piece is very important if we are going to look at traceability of an item combined with a mandatory lot. So this item requires a mandatory lot, and the lot number is going to be provided automatically upon receipt by Sage X3 by means of a lot sequence number. We are not serializing this item, although Sage X3 does support serialization of items. Because this is a food item, we are putting lead time on this item, and as a result, Sage X3 will use the lead time information that is provided at the time of receipt to create an expiration date. We have changed our approach for units of measure. We are stocking in cases, we are producing in cases, we are selling in cases. In addition, we have added a packing unit called pallet, where each pallet can contain 16 cases. If you have to break a pallet, you can unpack the pallet and use remainder cases as each case. We now move to product site record. Same item, managed in stock, class A, needs to come in as a non-changeable control, which means the item will come with a status Q, and you must go through quality control step before you change that status from Q to A. If you wish to use sampling, Sage X3 sampling logic supports ISO 2859 standard. Because we have added a packing unit, a pallet, we have enabled the packing functionality here. So when you use a pallet as a packing mechanism or selling mechanism, and when you print your packing labels, you have the ability to put stock details on that packing label as well, along with the barcode. Our location management remains simple. The product site also reaffirms that your recontrol lead time is 180 days. And from a planning perspective, we are going to use MRP to process this item. And when there is a requirement, we will end up creating a production work order. With that, we now go back to the item master record and take a look at more information about this particular item. Because it's a manufactured item, we are going to look at manufacturing bill of material. This bill of material is a manufacturing bill of material. A BOM gives you a choice in terms of your management unit. It can be a single unit, per 100, per 1000, percentages. If you are making a bread or pizza, you might want to use baker's percentage instead of lots. Here we are using a lot. We are going to produce in cases, 66 cases in a batch or in a lot. And for those units, here is what we need in terms of raw material. We need 576 pounds of intermediate item and so many eaches of the raw material items. I'm going to go to my routing from here, The routing defines your operational steps along with your work centers. This routing is available to use. It is defined in minutes. And as you go through your operational step, you can change materials and operations as required. There is a single step. It uses a machine work center. It also uses a labor work center. And there are three resources in the labor work center. There is a setup time, and then there is a proportionate runtime. Your labor work center and your machine work center have costing dimensions that actually provide you details in terms of setup and runtime costs. We are going to go back to our item, and now we are going to look at standard cost for this item. Standard cost, refresh my page so I can get all my records. NA021, selecting the first record tells me this record was used for 2020 for a total cost of 15.43. Second record is the right record that is used for 21 and the cost has gone up. So here you can look at your component cost, which is inclusive of your material, your labor, overhead, adding up to total cost of 16.0203. This is visual cue of our material cost, machine cost, labor cost, and overhead cost. When you look at your multi-level totals, material, machine, labor, overhead, this is how your $16 come up. And this $16 calculation was used based on cumulative or calculative quantity of 144 cases. With that, let's start looking at creating a sales order. I've already created a sales order. It has a shortage because we do not have this item in stock. Not available. What we need is 10 cases. There is 0 available, and hence the visual cue that we have a shortage. So now we go through and we run our MRP process. When we run our MRP this time, the MRP is going to go through the lowest level in our multi-level BOM to make sure we do not need any raw material item in terms of dependency. So you start at top level and you keep going down until you go to the lowest possible level, and you keep exploding your bill of material until you have completely gone through entire multi-level BOM before you come back with your requirements. There are ways for you to create formulas so that when you go into buyer's workbench, you can narrow down your search for a specific parent item. But I have made sure all of our raw materials exist in Sage X3. So we simply need to look at producing the parent item or the finished goods item. Planner logs into the system. We have already defaulted our search and narrowed it down to our finished goods product. Click search. There is a firm customer order, sales order 148, and that is creating this suggestion or this requirement from MRP. If you wish to go further, you could look at the planning workbench to see what planning workbench brings up. We have same action coming from the planning workbench. So from here, we can create our production work order. We can plan the work order and then go into the work order, take a look, verify it, and then release it and make it firm. Or we can simply release the work order from here, at which point the work order becomes firm, and that's the option we are going to take. The minute you create a firm work order, Sage X3 gives you a visible indication that something has changed. Now there is a green background for your customer order, which indicates that as soon as you execute this work order and produce finished goods items that are required, Sage X3 will be able to fulfill this demand and ship this order. The background for the work order line has also changed, indicating that we have created a firm work order. It is ready to be processed. We now go to production receipt. Notice I have not gone into the work order at all because we have released the work order as a firm work order. There is nothing for me to see. We create a new production tracking. And then from the work order drawer, we can select the work order that we just created for FIN 301. Notice that the previous work order is completed. This is the only pending work order for FIN 301. We select the work order. And as we click into the tracking quantity field, all the information from work order is now brought into my production tracking. So here is our operation step. But before you go into the work order, you have a choice. You can only process operation or production tracking or material tracking, or you can process all three at the same time. There are different screens available within Sage X3 if you wish to do it separately and differently. I've taken the option to do everything in a single screen. So our work center for the machine, work center for the labor, because we selected quantity 10, which is expected quantity, Sage X3 just goes ahead and releases whatever needs to happen in terms of setup and actual runtime. For the finished goods item, we need to make sure that we factor the lot tracking piece. And for that to happen, we need to go to the action button, the three ellipses, and look at lot complement information. As we have discussed in the product site record and product item record, that the fact that we gave 180 days for lead time, the system is going to generate an expiration date automatically. So this is the date when we are receiving the item. 180 days is the shelf life. Sage X3 creates expiration date automatically and factors your UBD coefficient and creates the use by date. We have an option to enter some information in 4 different user-defined fields if you so choose. You don't have to. If you do enter information here, it will be carried throughout the system. We click OK, and Sage X3 will assign a lot automatically as we generate this production tracking. Our items in terms of raw material and intermediate item, because we received all 10 quantities, Sage X3 has decided to release quantity tracked for this item, and if you wish, you can make changes. If you wish, you can accept them as they are. Notice we do not have the lot information just yet. We create the tracking, and as soon as we have created our tracking, you see the lot number information coming in. This is assigned automatically by Sage X3 based on the lot sequence number that we had put in place. When we click the status button, Sage X3 comes up and gives us a visual indication of what we were expecting, the plant quantity versus completed quantity, the plant material versus completed material, and then expected quantity for your operations. We now go to quality control, item FIN 301. Answer our questions. Change the status. Keep the default location. Click save. Click save. Go back. Now we have completed our QC step. So we should be able to look at our sales order. But before we do that, let's look at the work order. As we click on the work order and we click on WIP cost inquiry, Sage X3 gives you actual versus planned or expected and gives you the variance. We go out of here, we go to the sales order, we look at the allocation, and it's allocated and it's detailed allocation. The reason being, I have changed my settings in Sage X3 so that when items become available, Sage X3 automatically starts releasing the orders that were waiting for quantities to become available. At this point, you can either go through preparation or go through the delivery. These are the steps that we have gone through previously. So I'm now going to go to traceability for item FIN 301. I hope this is the lot that we just created. And if you notice, there are no customer movements. We simply received a work order. We went through quality control, and we now have item in the system available to be shipped because we haven't shipped the order yet. And if we go back, you have your supplier receipt. So you have full traceability from supplier receipt through to work order creation through to quality control steps. This concludes our demonstration. I'm going to move into our PowerPoint and share with you a quote from Amin Bilali, who is the Information Systems Manager at 10 Rehab. We needed to reduce our production cycles, which sometimes could take as long as 6 weeks. With X3, we have now got them down to under 3 weeks through the introduction of an efficient stock planning program. At this point, we are open to any questions you may have. Should you have any questions in future, please reach out to me at hitesh.danny@sage.com. Thank you very much for your attention and interest in Sage X3. Wishing you a fantastic day.